the more we trade in land, the more the inflation, where each time you transacted your land, you find that the government has taken back the cost of the land from you with 8 to 10 transactions with the amount of stamp duty you pay. But the government benefits and the whole system builds up. And we're not even realizing where we've been taken for a ride. And we think that tradability of land is synonymous with success. It is a sure shot indicator to tell you something is wrong. When land prices increase, we say there is progress. I differ. When land prices increase, you're in serious trouble. And I think some of the authorities need to look at that. I get into the architectural aspect, which is interesting, but I couldn't resist this, so I have this here. And trade against land, that's another major problem. The more credit you get against land as an asset, the more the trouble. That's only a warning, that's an indicator. What I went through this, if the land is sold, how the asset and the land cannot be traded. And today the government is more dependent on sale of land. And like Mr. Suresh says, we buy so many hundreds and so many lakh crores, etc. And therefore, where do you derive the revenue from? You say, we'll trade on land, the government jacks up the land price, you're already paying income tax, now you pay high price for your land, and you will go into a bigger tailspin as far as sustainable development is concerned. That's my interpretation. I don't know how many of you have heard this very interesting Armenian saying, we have not inherited the earth from our forefathers, but we borrowed it from our children. You're a custodian of land, and therefore you cannot be trading in it. I will skip this apart from the last 3 parts. Land value cannot exceed the cost of construction by more than 4 times. You study any economy where land and construction cost, if you relate the land and construction cost, where land price exceeds the construction cost by 4 times, you have a short indicator that you are in serious trouble. In India, land price is 100 times the cost of construction. If you can own land, you're a king. Construction is incidental, so I don't know what I'm talking about when I talk about sustainable building materials, because land is the main issue. We have a very good system of land trading through escrow accounts has been a part of various committees. And each time I bring up this business of escrow account, they all hiccup, but to put it very easily, I can make a plan, and in India you can make a plan and tell somebody come and pay 25% deposit, willingly pays it, and the builder goes and trades and buys more land and forward trades with it. But in an escrow account that goes into a trust account, that means if I'm the builder, you give me the money, it will go to my bank account. I can take a loan from the bank against it. I cannot use that deposit. Depending on my credibility, I can take a loan. So if I'm delaying the project, the interest is accruing to my debit. And unless I hand over the property, that interest does not get transferred to my account, and therefore I would be in a terrible hurry to deliver on time, otherwise I'll be in for breach of trust and breach of contract. Now this is something that's being practiced in several countries, but I've brought it up several times, but just no agency agrees with it, because the government itself is the trader in the land, and so are the builders. But an escrow account is a very simple thing. I'm just making you aware so that when you grow up and you become the decision makers, hopefully somebody will enforce this. Now, the building industry, now I'm coming back to the hardcore subject for which I'm here, that was just the introduction. The building industry accounts for 50%. Somebody said 6, somebody said 10, somebody said 12. The building industry accounts for 50% of the GNP of a country. That means the road you build, the fencing you put up, the lights you got on, the factory you build. Sometimes the farm factories where the machinery cost is lower than the building cost, so is the industry. If you take all that into account, 50% of the industry, 50% of the GNP of a country goes into construction. That is not being looked at. At best, the finance minister is making a fiddle of 10% of the economy and running your whole budget, but somebody's got to look into this area. The largest amount of resources are also consumed by the building industry. It is also responsible for the largest amount of environmental degradation and generates the largest amount of waste and It is second only to agriculture in providing employment. Now, contrary to belief, and I'll show you some projects which just establish what I'm talking about, highland is more economical to build on. We unfortunately build on flat land. You build on flat land, as we've done in parts of Bombay and Delhi, and then you build a road which is slightly higher than that, so that begins to flood. Right? Now, you can't take out the sewage because you don't have the slope to create the self-cleansing velocity, and then you add more water. Now, I don't know how many of you are aware of the WC that you use every morning is a 20-liter cistern. You remember those old cisterns where you just had to hang by the chain. It says 5 gallons, that's 20 liters. Why did the 20-liter cistern come about? The 20-liter cistern came about, it was a British standard left behind, because the British were using newspaper as toilet paper. You'd be surprised to know that that standard was formulated around trying to take newspaper down the sewage pipe, not your soil. So, you have to revise these things. Now, if you have flat land, then you have to create self-cleansing velocity and you require more water. After that, when we discuss these zone development issues and the infrastructure issues, we find that people talk about adding more water to be able to carry it to the sewage treatment plant. Whereas you consume about 30 to 40 liters per day, the per capita estimation is 135 liters a day because they add 50 to 60 liters only to create the self-cleansing velocity so your sewage can go to the sewage treatment plant. Now, was that necessary? I'm going to try and see if we can work around that to go to the planning norms that are required to be changed. Now, contrary to belief about land shortage, there's ample land available. We're doing a project in Delhi and the government said, we don't have enough land to rehabilitate the slums. And I was a part of a commission that went into this. And within 2 weeks, when I had all the Patwaris and Nayak Tehsildars report to me, to clean up all of the slums of Delhi, you require only 7,000 acres of land. And in 2 weeks, I give 32,500 acres of land. And the government has hidden that report because it shows everybody into a night. But you have a similar situation in Mumbai. There is no shortage of land. Your planning systems are wrong. What you put down is wasteland. When you fly into Mumbai, coming from the new Mumbai side, there are beautiful hills there. Those were the right ones. Which are the prime areas of Mumbai? Altamont Road, all these hilly areas? With good reason. Have you ever do you find a village on flat land? Even the villager builds on the highest land. Have you found a fort on flat land? It's always on the high land, for very good reason. We assume that the civilizations came up because they're always on the river banks. But would they be crazy to build a fort on top of a wall, on top of a hill, when the river was flowing at a lower level? How did they get the water up? Nobody seems to answer this question. 9 times Delhi was built. It was always built in the hills. The Yamuna was flowing lower. How did they get the water up into the forts in Delhi? 9 times they made this mistake. Are we the only sensible people, or are we making a very serious mistake? The villagers' Thakur's well is on top of the hill. Is the Shudra who's beside the thing. We never drew water from rivers. We drew water from wells adjacent to the rivers, but never from the river itself. And that's where we begin our infrastructure problems and planning issue problems. Now, wasteland is actually good for development because what we term as wasteland is undulating land, and there is a lot of catchment, there's a lot of water percolation, and there's a whole lot of holding capacity. And that is why the forts came up there. All they did was make the wells deeper than the bed of the river or the bed of the basin.